Episode 123 Above Ground Podcast. How do you engage in self-love?
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundation for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Are you ready to lace up your boots, throw up your horns, and jump into the pit? Then let's stomp the stigmas of mental illness. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now, Will Foley and Timothy Patrick.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us for another fun-filled episode of
Above Ground Podcast.
Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below.
That's right. And the opinions expressed herein are those of the authors and those alone. Thank you very much.
So, recently, my co-host, Will Foley, that I'm sitting across from, winking at, told me that he made the leap, and which is a leap and bound for him, and I'm very proud of him for doing this, but he is going to therapy.
Yes, back in therapy.
He's back in therapy.
I'm back in therapy, man.
And one of the things that I like his therapist. I don't know the therapist, but he tells me that is it a woman?
It is. It is a woman.
So she gives him homework.
She does. She gives me homework.
And he said some of his homework was how do you engage in self-love?
Yes. So I've been given some prompts to write about, and the second prompt was, how do you engage in self-love? But there was a preface to it.
Okay.
And the preface to it was this: self-love is the self-acceptance of a pain point and removing it. Now, in my treatise of that whole thing, I kind of went up above it, over it, under it,
sure,
around it, through
around
it. And quite well, because the problem is that these types of prompts, we talk about this all the time. For me, I'm connecting dots. Okay, so the problem is that how do I engage in self-love? How do you engage in something that you don't have for yourself? Okay, so there's the first part. Then you can sort of look at it from engagement. How do you engage in anything if you're not present for it? You can't engage in anything if you don't have self-love either, because how do you engage in anything that you don't necessarily?
Maybe for somebody like that you're explaining that, how do you engage in something that you don't have or you're not sure of? Maybe the first step would be to define it.
Right. So
So
I kind of defined it by stating like 5 or 6 things that I did not love about myself, and then kind of so this is what unlove looks like, but what love looks like is, you do some of the things, you put practices together. But so this is what my takeaway was, is that you can engage in self-love, but if you don't feel that you have self-worth, you will derail it, you will ignore it, you will blow it up, you will face the big, wide sloth of resistance that it is. And that is really what you're up against.
Do you think that you can at least engage in figure this stuff out without having a good self-esteem or a lot of self-worth?
The only way that for me, the only way that I can build self-worth is to do this work.
Okay, so do this work.
So
and then
to do this work, and then the self-worth comes.
Okay.
Because look, and we've talked about this, and you said this, and I've heard this from my wife. Follow through is not my strong suit on a lot of things. Okay, I mean, yes, I'm good with follow through up to a point, but once I get to a point and I get stuck, I get stuck. So it's hard to move forward.
Which I think, and if you don't mind me saying, I think that maybe part of the variable in you getting stuck, or I think you take on a lot of different tasks, and I think you might have like a little bit of like ADHD going on.
Well, I do have a little bit of ADHD
because I feel like you get these awesome ideas, and then you're like, yeah, this, and I got A, B, and C, and I'm like, oh, dude, like that's awesome. And then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks later, I'm like, what happened with that? You're like, oh, I got this and this going on now.
Yeah, I can't. Like, dude, you know? I did. Yeah, you give me a mine, I'll find 50 fucking pieces of gold in the mine. But getting the gold to a point of being able to use it, no. It's like, you know what I mean? That. You know, I can pan all you want, but it's like, so, and this is something that I've come across, and this is one of those cycles, man. This is so yes, therapy. I'm back in therapy, and I personally think that most of us could really benefit from therapy.
Oh, I agree.
However, if you're not a talker, you may not be cut out for that type of thing necessarily, because the only way that therapy works, okay, is if you are honest with your therapist. You have to be honest, dude, because if you
work, I think those are the two keys that you have to do work, and you have to be honest. Those are the keys. You have to. If you can do that.
Because here's the thing,
sky's the limit.
Why are you going to therapy if you don't want to be there? Because you know what? You don't have to go to therapy. Right. You don't have to go to therapy. I didn't necessarily say, oh, I want to go to... I know I need this. Because for me, I need all the fail-safes, because the one big fail-safe that everybody wants to throw at me, I'm not going to take. I'm not going to take medicine. So I know that I never did everything that I could to keep myself going without medicine. So I know that in myself, because again, if you're not doing everything, then you're not doing everything. You can't make it up. This is not something that you can just make up and lie about. You can't, because you can't.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can argue that. I mean, that's well said for sure. You know, do you think, like in the beginning, you said like awareness of a pain point?
That was the premise.
Right, that's what she gave you.
That was the premise that she...
But I guess I don't want to spend too much time on this, but do you think that you can remove it?
It's funny that you say that, because I actually had this conversation with her.
Okay.
And I said, here's the thing. I said, if you have pain points, which my pain points are like landmines, and right now every landmine has been fucking touched within the last 6 months. So, I mean it. Like, they're triggered. I mean, they're just triggers. So I got to just grow the fuck up and get over it. But it's
no, I wouldn't say that.
But I don't think that you can ever remove all pain points, because I think that anything can be a pain point, and if it's not a pain point now, what's to say it's not going to be a pain point later? Because pain is a very relative term.
Right. It can remind you that you're alive, it can remind you that you're human, and it can remind you that you're doing something. And it can also... You know what? I hate to say it, people might disagree, but it can also lead you in the right direction. Like if you, like you said, you're finding these landmines, and it's not like you have to be like, oh, I'll just grow up and get... No. Go to the landmines and say, like, hey, I'm going to measure the distance between this landmine and this landmine, and be like, why are these landmines here? You know, why is it every time I go into a store and look for, you know, X, Y, and Z, like this happens? You know what I mean? I step on a landmine. So then go back to that situation and look. Like maybe that store's got, you know, a bunch of scary clowns, or maybe it's got, you know, tons of toddlers running around screaming at the top of their lungs. You know, it's very sensory, and they're like, who the hell can stand that shit, you know?
Those are good though. I like because that is sensory overload.
It is for
man.
me. It is. I can't do it. You know what I mean? I get anxious just thinking about it. That drives me nuts.
And I gotta say, my sensory availability has been tested over the last couple of years, and it gets tested more and more. I notice that I can tolerate less and less certain
You notice
things.
that what you can tolerate. I guess let me rephrase that. Can you tolerate more when you're in a better state of mind?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that the unbalanced state of mind, we'll say, because it's not. It's either balanced or unbalanced. There's, you know what I mean?
No, yeah. I get that.
Yeah. So if I'm unbalanced, feeling unbalanced, and feeling really triggered, and just every pain point is being stepped on, then yeah, it's way harder.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the way it is with you too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just recently talking to someone about juggling, and if I could juggle like 2 or 3 balls and I'm okay. You give me 5 or 6 balls and I'm like, I can't really do it. You throw a 7th at me, forget it. It's like they're gonna fall and I'm gonna just screw it up and it's just gonna be a mess.
You can do 3?
No, I can't. I was just using it as I can't juggle at all.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, like the more balls, the more landmine. You know what I mean?
Sure, the more right.
It's just the more balls thrown at you. You're like, you know what I mean?
And I really am a true believer that we are not meant to multitask.
We are. I mean, that's not even about us believing it. That's a fact.
I mean, we're just
our brains aren't meant to do it. Absolutely not.
And I think that, like, going back to the pain. See, pain is a teacher. A pain point may not necessarily need to be removed as much as it needs to be examined.
Perfectly said. Well said.
And again, though, if we're in this I need relief now, vibration, then yeah, to you, yes, you need to get rid of that pain point.
Right.
So for you, that's a different. You have to look at it with a different set of eyes. But again, pain is meant to be a teacher. If you have pain in a particular body part, it's trying to tell you something.
Right.
It's trying to tell you that something's not right. You got shoes that fit too tight, you get a blister, right? You get, it's just any of those things.
Right. No, I agree with that. So I was saying, like, with the landmine, it's not about, like, it's not really about, like, in my opinion, like, we shouldn't be focused solely on, like, removing them. We should be like, like you said, examine them. Why are they there? Like, how many and why did this go off this time? Why, figure that stuff out and, like, kind of maybe enable yourself to like, finagle through these landmines. Work your way through the landmines where the less explosions are going to happen.
Absolutely, man. And you know what? Make friends with your demons.
Yeah.
Make friends with your demons. Invite them out for a candy apple. Bring them to the hayride. Have a candy apple with them and get to know them, because this is all teaching you something. And I'm a real believer that we have stuff here to learn. And that's what this is to teach you. And it's about to teach you about yourself. And I think that that's the greatest gift that you can give yourself, is to learn about yourself. Because what else is there, man? Do you really want to learn about another, fucking pop culture figure who could give 2 shits about you? Or do you want to learn about yourself? Do you want to learn about how you tick and how you could make yourself better? And I'm not saying that from this, leadership, go out and hustle until you're dead. You know what? I'm not saying it from that.
Yeah, no, well said.
I'm saying it from a friend standpoint. Dude, you are worthy. Get to know you. I'm just finding this out. Like, that's why I'm actually enjoying this process.
Yeah.
Like, I'm enjoying letters to Billy. I'm enjoying therapy. Like, this is something that is benefiting me. And it's something that I proactively take part in because I need it. Because this is the truth. I've reached a point where there's only a few options at this point. And the last option is not on the table currently. But it's never, that dark room is always in that hallway, man, and that door is always tempting me to open it up. You know, you shake the doorknob a little bit, you see if it's locked. Then you open it up, you see how dark it is inside, but it's not so dark in there today because the light's shining in the window. But then the next day you turn on, there's no light in there at all. So you can't go in that room. You got to go down to your hobby room, wherever your stuff is.
It's funny that you just said that, because I was thinking right before you started saying that, I'm thinking in my head, like, you could develop a new daily ritual. You could find new positive habits that you can incorporate that will overshadow some of those pain points.
Or help you deal with those pain points. Help manage those pain points.
Yeah.
I'm because I really do think, though, that I agree with you that it's not beneficial to remove all pain points.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I don't
but
think so, because again, I do believe that they're there to teach you something. So if you remove the teacher, then what are you going to learn?
I don't know. I think that's like something that I would love for us to be able to like come back to like 5 years and look at that, because maybe it'll change. You know, maybe we'll be at a different place where we can go, oh, I understand that now. You know,
maybe.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Dude, I got to be honest. I figured I would have, I figured you get to a certain age, you figure you have a certain amount of experience, and you figure that but I really don't know.
No, and that's, you know,
it's crazy.
That's part of our problem is almost, we're kind of limiting ourselves by doing that. You know, with coming up with these like labels or whatever. Like, you know, I just there was an article recently about it was kids in schools and how we kind of like, you know, they don't know any better on that. Give them the you know, and we kind of let some things slide. And I think that kind of goes to say that should go with some adults. Like, some adults just don't know better. Like, we say in our heads, like, yeah, they should, but like, I think just saying that, yeah, they should is part of, you know, can be part of that problem or a problem.
I mean, you could say they should if they learned it.
Okay.
But
right.
If you haven't learned how to do it,
know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. So, and again, it really does come back to, maybe I'm not the only one that hates themselves or doesn't have a lot of self-worth when you think about all the people that are just walking around sheepishly in the throes of whatever.
Oh yeah, they just hide it way better.
You know what I mean? And they're just, you know,
or they don't want to admit it.
Or they're afraid to it. Right. They're afraid to admit it. They're afraid to admit it. Right.
You know? I mean, like you said, everyone's healing from something.
We're all healing from something, man. We should all be in recovery from something. Regardless of whether it is, it may not be that you need as much recovery as this guy or this girl or that person, but we should all be in recovery from something. And especially now, where so many of us are just constantly ratcheted up because of our phones and the internet and stuff, and just constantly consuming stuff. And I realized how bad consuming things can really be, because I realized I spent a lot of time in my youth consuming music, but it was not always healthy consumption, because I replaced things by buying, by spending all my money on it all the time, and it was an obsession. It was an obsession to buy cassettes. It was an obsession to acquire cassettes. It was an obsession to start buying CDs, and it became an obsession to acquire CDs in whichever way that took for me.
Right.
And it sort of seems that may have been unhealthy at one point, and you don't know that when you're in the throes of it, because you can't see it. So sometimes you just need, you need some insight to point it out.
Yeah, it's funny because I have, you had actually said when you got back from therapy that you had this homework assignment of how do you engage in self-love, and you were like, I think that could be a cool idea for an episode, and I was like, actually, yeah, it could be. So I started writing some stuff down, just I like to do, it's cool for me too to when we come up with an idea for an episode and I like kind of do some like notes on it because, it helps me learn and kind of gives me a little time to kind of learn more about myself even, in this situation. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is I wrote some stuff down, for, because you asked me that question, how do you engage in self-love? And of course, when you asked me, it was through text, so I thought you were actually asking me the question. So I started to kind of go through some things in my head, but you were kind of setting it up.
Which I like. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
I'm glad you took that
No, I
step.
did. So I'm just gonna read some of this stuff this is my personal, if someone were to say, how do you engage in self-love? But I had music down on my list because you just said, buying music and being obsessive about it. And I kind of had a little bit of that, but I look at it as I didn't, if it wasn't for the music, I maybe would have been engaged in some other activities that could have, been bad or just, had some negative effects.
I think I would have ate. I think I would have ate it all.
Yeah,
I do.
I don't know what I'm not sure, but I found my home, my whatever in music. That's, it's helped me through a lot, and it continues to help me through a lot. But knowing my limits, and I wrote down boundaries in big because I think boundaries are big for this, for self-love. For me, at least, setting boundaries and being able to hold those boundaries are a big way to create self-love because you have to be able. And then you have to be able to hold them. You can write stuff down, but if you continue to let, people step on your boundaries, then that's, that you're kind of teaching them, how to treat you, I guess, in a way. So, but it's not even about interpersonal relationships as well. I think self-love for me, setting boundaries it's everything, whether it's limiting social media or knowing if I'm working way too much and I just need a break, or knowing if I just need a break, if I need downtime from life itself and just kind of tuck away in my room and blast music for a while, or car ride, whatever. But setting boundaries is big for me. And I think everyone is different as far as we all have different sized plates in front of us, and Will's plate might be bigger than mine, but maybe he can't fit a lot of food on his plate, and maybe I can fit more food on my plate, but it doesn't really matter as long as you're able to recognize what your plate can hold and what you're able to consume, I guess, even, as you're being mindful of what you're consuming.
Wow, so that's a good point though, man. Recognition of what you can and can't do is a good way to start with self-love.
Knowing your limits, I think, is for me, because I know there's things that, if you put me in a situation where there's 3 or 4 different elements, like whether it's loud, very sensory, loud noises, and then if I'm in a situation, then put me in that situation with 4 or 5 other people, and they want to have a conversation. You're trying to hear this person's talking. You know what I mean? There's going to be, for me, I know those situations are going to put me above baseline and just not being able to focus, and then God forbid if something happened, if I was out and the waiter spilled a drink on me or something, that could escalate into something that I don't want it to escalate to. You know what I mean?
Well, you have control over that, though.
I do, but I'm just saying there's certain things that, unfortunately, that's one of the things.
Mindfulness.
There's certain times where, I struggle with emotional regulation. That's one of my hurdles, and I think, certain elements being, there's variables to that. If I'm in those kind of situations and environments that can, stimulate other areas, then it's just about, for me, it's about knowing my limits, knowing my boundaries, and knowing when I need to rest, knowing signs of the depression that sneaks up, the physical symptoms, or if it's just anxiety going on, the thoughts, being mindful of the thoughts, and being mindful of self-talk, whether it's positive or negative, trying to be mindful of those thoughts that are coming and going. Carving out a small time for just me, and I think I kind of touched on that earlier, but just having me time, whether it's an hour or doing, if it's 10 minutes, maybe going outside and taking a walk or meditating or whatever it is, being mindful of that and being able to carve out time. Paying attention to my sleeping and eating, some positive habits in those. Taking any medication that I need. Taking my vitamins and keeping up with my supplements. And a balance of all these things too. Being able to be productive, but also having downtime. Also make sure that I'm having time that I'm looking for joy or laughing and being, in these situations where I can be creative and learn. I guess I don't know. I kind of got lost on that train of thought, but that all this stuff kind of for me like was what encompasses how I engage in self-love.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have some practices that I go to. I wish I was a better practicer at them. But you know what, man? You can only wake up every day and start from scratch.
Self-compassion, right?
Right, self-compassion. So, and
having self-compassion is.
Well, I think self-compassion is probably the biggest form of self-love there is, probably. So, and again, self-love really comes down to worthiness. So you have to make sure that you feel worthy. So, yeah, and if you don't feel worthy, then you have to build up something to feel worthy about. So, sure.
If you don't feel worthy, maybe you have to be mindful and realize you have those shit-colored lenses on.
Right, and then you have to examine why you don't feel like that.
Right. I feel good. I'm feeling okay, but my thoughts are making me feel that I'm not worthy.
Right. Yes, and that's basically what it is. It's not that you're not worthy, because you know what? You are. You're whole. You're not broken. You're not separate from anything. You're not a sin. You're not this. You're not that. That's all bullshit, man. It's all like control bullshit.
What were you saying? I kind of cut you off there.
And it's like, so you got to remember. So you got to have practices for yourself, and whether it's 5 minutes or an hour or 10, whether it's going to the gym. But again, though, make sure that it's a healthy relationship, though, that it's setting, okay, with yourself. Because many people go to the gym and they should be in recovery from going to the gym, just because it becomes an obsession. They're going unhealthy.
To the gym to overshadow
something else
yes.
that's not fulfilling them. For sure. And that's not a healthy. That's not healthy.
Yeah.
But again, just carve out something for yourself. And I will say this. I've gone back to meditation.
Right.
I don't set a time. I just sit down. It's
probably better for you.
I sit down and, I can do 20 minutes.
But I'm saying, instead of saying tonight I have to do it at 5, and you know what I mean?
I don't, setting a time as far as a time limit.
Oh, okay.
Because I get stuck on the 20 minutes.
Okay.
And I really try to force myself to sit for 20 minutes, even if I'm jumping all over the place. It's better for me just to be whatever it is.
Okay.
Because I'd rather do something than not do it.
Yeah, perfect.
But and the qigong and the meditation go hand in hand, because I one of the best thing that I've done for myself for 2021 was actually get a regular acupuncture treatment regularly, and I'm fortunate enough that I have good insurance that actually covers it, so I get like 10 a year, and I'm almost up to that end, and it's been awesome, and Greg is awesome, and I swear by acupuncture, because when I sit and do like John Kabat-Zinn's body scan, like if you lay down and do a body scan, you can really feel where there's something that's not right, and I discovered it sitting and meditating recently, that my problem that I need to have worked on is on my left side. I get like this cold shoulder thing going on. Like I can feel it.
Is that with your neck and back, you think?
It is. It's from the nerves and stuff. So I have to have that worked out and things. But you can tell those things because you start to learn your body.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And that's another form of developing self-worth, because so not to go off on a tangent, but we talk about committed suicide at times, right? Where we've used those words. I do think that there are people that commit suicide. And it's the people like myself who slowly kill themselves by bad health practices, by bad whatever it is. And I think you slowly are, and in that instance, you are committing something, because you're committing the crime against your self-love. And I'm not saying it's a crime, and I don't mean it that way. I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
And it is. Some of it's, and a lot of it's unconscious, man. It's just unconscious, unmindful behavior that we get into patterns, and it literally is patterns that we just haven't broken. And it sounds so easy, and it's not, but it's not as difficult as everybody makes it sound. It really is. They're just patterns that need recognition, and then they need reorganizing and then restructuring. That's really what it is, you know?
Yeah.
I think.
No, hey,
the fuck do I know?
I feel the same way. I that's how I view it. I do. And you know, and we can sit here and talk about it and go, yeah, this is, but you know, when you're in the throes of life, you know, there's variables that get thrown at you, and it can be tough, but you know, to be mindful. I mean, it sounds so easy, but to be mindful is a way to, you know, and reassess, you know what I mean? Do the body scans, you know, 2 or 3 times a day if you have to. Get in that habit of just, you know what I mean? You can do that at work. You can do it in a car.
Oh,
you know
what
I mean?
Yeah, especially now, we have no excuse not to be able to take 2 minutes out.
Right.
Even if we can't sit and focus on our breath. Like, if you can't sit there and count your breath or pay attention to the tip of your nose while you're breathing, then turn on a YouTube video for a guided. Because there's a million 2-minute guided meditations, man.
Yeah.
A million of them. So
that's kind of how
you can certainly find help with it. Beginning, and just find somebody that has a voice that you like, and just stick with it, man, and just listen to it over and over again for a few days, and it's not hard to do. It's just it's hard to get yourself to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, that's kind of nails it right there. You're absolutely right. It's hard to get yourself to do it. Like, you know, you have to. I don't know. It's everybody's different, but I think you have to carve out a little bit of time and be mindful each day to continue to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like I've noticed, like, if you were to, you know, say if your regular work week, you're in this pattern, you're in these habits, you go through these daily routines because you're working Monday through Friday or whatever your schedule is, but then, like, go back and say, oh, geez, I'm on vacation, and then look at that week and see how many of those habits that you don't do anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like you kind of lose those, you know what I mean? Where if you get up and the first thing you do is brush your teeth, and then you know, when you're on vacation, that may not be the first thing you do, you know?
Right. See, programs become patterns that become problems later on. And if you don't question the program, and you get stuck in the pattern and you don't stop the pattern, then the problems start. Because it doesn't matter how good something is at first, it can always turn out bad. No matter how good it is.
Well, I think that's kind of a lot of the trauma and stuff that we kind of have to deal with now, is like, we did stuff, our coping strategies at 10 years old worked for us at 10 years old. They don't work out for us now.
No, they don't, man. No, so, not at all.
You know what I mean? You gotta change. You gotta reassess, and you know, it be like water. You know?
Yeah, be like water, my friends. Wow, that's a good way to end it, man. It's a good way to end it. That was a good conversation about self-love.
That was a good conversation.
I'm really interested, though, if anybody out there wants to tell us how they engage in self-love, or what their ideas of engaging in self-love are. We'd really like to hear them at abovegroundpodcast@gmail.com, or you can leave us a review and tell us about self-love, and because you heard it on this episode. Can't talk now.
Check us out on all the socials. Check us out on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen. Nippertown. If you can even any of those, if they have the option to subscribe, please subscribe. And if you think this episode could benefit a friend or a loved one, feel free to share it with them. That's one thing that we enjoy when people do is share our episodes.
That's right. And don't forget, if you're on YouTube, hit the notification bell, man, because we're on YouTube too, and our episodes come out every week on there too. So you got to make sure you hit that notification bell so you know it came out on Wednesday, because it comes out every Wednesday. Every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday, a new pod for you.
How do you engage in self-love?
That's right. So until next time, be well.
Be safe.
Be above.